Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all attendees from all over the world. I hope you are safe and wish you and your family and friends good health in these unprecedented times. I welcome you to this webinar on OSP guidelines issued by the DoT on the 5th of November 2020. I am Anish Bhatnagar, Legal Director for BT in India, and I'm delighted and honored to be asked by the organizers to help moderate this very interesting session. This session is organized by Khaitan & Co LLP, ACTO, which stands for the Association of Competitive Telecom Operators, and BIF, Broadband India Forum. OSP, as many of you know, stands for Other Service Providers, and under the erstwhile OSP guidelines in very broad terms, earlier applied to businesses which run contact centers, back office operations, other forms of contact centers for servicing their customers and clients. Now, there is changes to this as well, which will be discussed later in the discussion. Now, it is my view, which I'm sure is shared by many of you on this call, that by the 5th of November OSP guidelines, which supersede all previous guidelines on the issue, there has been a paradigm shift in the approach taken by the Government of India in enabling and supporting businesses in India. These guidelines, in my view, are a landmark in regulations and reforms and have struck the right balance between enabling and nurturing businesses as against being purely for the purpose of protecting revenue. And striking the right balance between these, which is a very delicate balance, is a challenge for regulators globally. Therefore, on behalf of the organizers, I would like to extend thanks to the Department of Telecommunications, Government of India, also called the DoT, for the work done in this area. In particular, I extend my thanks and from the organizers to Shri Anshu Prakash, the Secretary Telecom, Government of India, Shri K. Ramchand, Member Telecom DoT, Shri Sharad Trivedi, DDGCS, who we have actually the privilege to have on our panel today, and Shri Ajay Negi, Director CS DoT. The panel today consists of Shri Sharad Trivedi, who I mentioned a few seconds ago. Ms. Sharadji is an ITS officer and the DDGCS in the DoT carrier services. Sharadji has over 30 years of experience in policy making, operations, licensing, planning, and development of the telecom sector. So welcome, Sharadji. The second panelist I'm introducing to you is TV Ramachandran, who is the president of the Broadband India Forum and widely known in industry as TV. Harsh Walia is the third participant and panelist, who is a partner TMT with Khaitan & Co LLP. Saurabh Bhatnagar joins us as the president of ACTO. Subramaniam Chandrasekhar from Microsoft looks after regulatory affairs and public policy for Microsoft. And with his permission, we'll refer to him as Shekhar for this panel discussion. Vineet Vij is a group general counsel for Tech Mahindra Limited, and Priya Mahajan, who is the head of Asia Pacific Public Policy and Regulatory Council at Verizon Communications. I welcome the panel today on this session. The format for the discussion after the opening remarks from each panelist is going to be followed up with questions from the audience. But before that, we will have one session, a presentation from Harsh Walia in Khaitan & Co LLP to lay down the context and bring out the differences between the old OSP regulations and the new guidelines. The audience may please type their questions throughout the presentations in the questions box so that they can be directed to the panelists for their thoughts. Now, as an advanced warning, we may not be able to answer every question due to paucity of time, but I do assure you that the panelists will make their best efforts to get back to you on an email if necessary to respond to the questions following up from this session. There is a poll planned which will happen during this presentation, and there'll be questions which will come up on your screen, which I would urge you and invite you to answer to provide us with the right feedback and get a sense of what everybody else feels about the discussion and the changes which have been introduced. Now, before starting, I just had to quickly make two statements, and to save time for every panelist, the views presented on this panel are those of the panelists in their own individual capacity and may not reflect the views of the entities they may or may be employed with. and I sincerely hope that this will open the gates for a far more candid discussion. The second important thing, which I think I speak for the panelists, is that the OSP guidelines are actually a policy statement, and the standard rules of statutory interpretation do not always apply in the same way. Therefore, the policymaker is free to interpret the guidance, and that's the best place for us to check back on for any confirmations. Now, in order to start this presentation, and without much ado, I will now invite Sharat Trivedi ji from the DOT to provide his opening remarks on the OSP guidelines. Sharat ji, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Anish, and a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants of this webinar. I also thank the organizers, that is APTO and Broadband India Forum, who have combined together with Khaitan and Company for organizing this webinar. It is a good timing for the webinar, as you all know that the new guidelines for the other service providers, or we call OSPs in short, has been released recently on 5th of November 2020. This supersedes all the earlier guidelines which were issued earlier. Just to give you a brief background to the participants, many of you may be knowing, but some of you may be missing out. The other service providers category was regulated by Department of Telecom, Government of India, way back in 2000. After that, there were some amendments that were issued. One major change happened in the year 2008 when the last guidelines were issued. They were amended from time to time in the year 2009, 11, 2012. Now, over the years, what has happened is these were interpreted in different ways, and the industry, IT industry, ITES industry, BPO sector, they felt burdened with the regulation. That is what they were feeling. That is the feedback that DOT was getting. Over the years, we had some interaction, internal discussion within DOT, and prior recommendations were sought, and we got a detailed recommendation on what should be the terms and conditions of the other service providers. That were being examined by Department of Telecom, and while being examined, we found that the issues are complicated and they are lengthy issues. So in the meantime, the corona pandemic came in. That was the time when that was the middle of March, we came out with the first relaxation of the terms and conditions and allowed work from home as a special relaxation. Earlier, it was allowed for the other service providers, but it was against bank guarantee, but there were various limitations to that. Now, that was the changing point. That was the time I joined the Department of DOT headquarters and joined this division. And I feel fortunate that we came out with those relaxations on 13th of March 2020, because soon after that, there were sporadic cases of lockdown that happened by the local administration in Noida and other places. And the IT industry got geared up to meet the requirement so that the business doesn't get disrupted. Thereafter, it was relaxed, extended from time to time, and Department of Telecom internally felt that there's a need to have a change and relax the guidelines, come out with a new guideline before this current relaxation was going to expire on 31st December. We should come out with a new guideline much before that. In the meantime, we started having industry interactions. That is, interaction with the various associations and with the industry participants. And then we started getting feel of how are the issues and what are the issues and what are the real problems being faced by the industry member. This gave us insight to the problems of the industry and how we can take care of that while taking care of the security concerns of India. There were two major concerns. One was the toll bypass and other was the security. So these deliberations were going on, and after detailed examination, we have been able to come out with the new guidelines. That was on the 5th of November 2020. Now, these new guidelines have gone much beyond what TRAI had recommended. There are a number of issues, there are a number of points on which DOT has relaxed to a large extent. First and foremost is no registration is required. That means no requirement of submitting network diagram, no requirement of submitting any compliances. That has also been relaxed. No bank guarantee is required to be submitted which were also considered as a big deterrent by the OSPs. There was another requirement of having centralized internet at one location so that other OSP centers can access. That would help the help in implementation of the security solutions. So OSPs can now have VPN connectivity within their offices, take centralized internet at one location, at the central location, with the full security solution, firewall, IPS, etc., and then access internet through their site. So other sites would get filtered internet. Work from home was considered a mandatory requirement which had got started from which had got relaxed in March, but then the thought process was why to be restricted to home only. The companies were saying that they are under liability, that once they declare the address of the remote agent, whether he's working from home or he's working from any other place, that is a big challenge. How do the industries take care of that part? And the industry, the companies are exposed to the risk of committing violations in case the remote agent moves from his home and starts working from another location. Now with the work from anywhere, that is a step beyond that allows that a remote agent can work from any place. It could be his office, or he can go on weekends, or it could be even from native places. So this is going to promote employment generation in the rural areas, and it will be good for the nation. Modern PABX was one requirement which had ambiguity, and that had been clearly explicitly allowed, but that is for the international OSPs. There are some special dispensations that are allowed for the OSPs that have been listed out in the chapter 2 of the new OSP guidelines. They were earlier not explicitly mentioned, but now in the new guidelines they have been brought on together in the chapter 2. Now, interconnectivity between the OSP centers is also allowed, and that is mentioned subject to certain conditions. And the requirement of giving compliances, that was being felt that compliances have to be submitted, annual reports have to be submitted. Whenever there is change in the network diagram, that have to be submitted. Those many things have been dispensed with. Now the issue is how will these OSPs, who are OSPs, and how will they be regulated? Now it is more of a self-regulation. Since the new OSP guidelines are there, we cannot say that OSPs are not there. Other service providers are there. They have to adhere to these guidelines, which are very liberal, but they have to do self-regulation. So many things which they were doing earlier, like logical partitioning or maintaining of CDRs. Anyway, maintenance of CDR is mentioned in the policy, but logical partitioning is not mentioned. But it is in the interest of the other service providers and the IT companies that they should follow those guiding principles. They need not give report to DOT all the time, but in case of any violation, they can use those tools for tracing back. So these are the things, are the main highlights of the new guidelines. And we foresee that earlier India was considered as a favorable destination for BPO industry. Now with this liberal approach, it is possible. It is expected that this BPO sector should grow further, and it will generate better employment, and it will be good for the Indian economy. There are certain issues that are certain queries that are being raised by different agencies, by different units, and whenever new guideline comes, now industry was expecting something. They got, I guess, more than what they were expecting. Now the only issue will be that there will be queries. We are collecting the queries, we are working on that, and we'll come out with the fresh FAQs or the fresh clarifications. I think that will take care of all the existing issues. Anyway, that was all that I had to say. Thank you very much. And then I would like to add one more thing, that we got very good support from the industry by way of getting inputs from various quarters. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharji. That was very helpful, and that was very elaborate. There's one follow-up question that comes to mind. I think it's a question that's with a lot of people on this call, and that is because there's a lot of interpretation that forms part of these policy documents. And you did mention that you are looking into queries, and there'll be subsequent clarifications. But if businesses have specific queries about these, who should they reach out to? Should they reach out to an email address, say to yourself, or should they reach out to the term cells? Anything you want to throw light on that bit, please?
Yes, Mr. Harish. This is a good question. Point is where they should reach out. One method is they can easily contact the term cell because they will be closest to them. They have been interacting with them. The term cell, in any case, are collecting the points. They have already raised some issues, some doubts, and they have collated the information and given to us. So there's no issue. They can send to term cell with a copy to us or vice versa. But both have to be in sync. End of the day, policy guidelines will be issued by us. The DGT office consisting of DGT headquarters at Delhi and the term cells in the different field units in the states. They combine together, we have to be in sync.
Great, thank you. That's very helpful. I think that's an important question for a lot of us. So I think we can write to the term cells with your officers in the copy, and then and then wait for a response from the relevant term cell for the interpretation help. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
May I now invite Harsh Walia, the partner TMT. Harsh is going to make a short presentation, to set out the differences in the old guidelines and the new guidelines, and also to refresh to the audience, what's the context for this entire discussion. So Harsh, over to you, please. Harsh, you're on mute, I think.
Thank you, Anish. And thank you, Sharad ji, for this enthralling session and taking us through the whole journey of how this new guidelines have come into existence. It's barely 15 days, not even 15 days, that we have these new guidelines, and I can see that there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm in the industry, looking at the ways they want to implement this particular guideline, change their network infrastructure and all of that. To a more conducive environment. And I think the purpose of this webinar is to gain that momentum and direction for the industry so that they can implement it without hassles. A brief background of Khaitan & Co. I would say I'll not spend too much time. We are a full service law firm since 1911. We'll be completing our 110 years next year. Around 700 professionals and spread across India. I am looking after TMT, all aspects related to transactions, regulatory, public policy in this sector. So I'll move on to the agenda straight away. Can we have the next slide? So we are going to cover this today very briefly. I'm going to take you through a comparison of the old guidelines and where we stand today. We are going to look at some of the bigger points that or issues rather where DOT has gone a step beyond what was recommended or the ask of the industry, as Sharad ji also rightly pointed. Some areas where further clarity is expected in coming days, how the gap can be bridged in the sense where all other amendments are required pursuant to the new guidelines. We will also be looking at some of the architectures on IT and telecom side in view of the new guidelines, and finally how the guidelines is going to impact various sectors. So jumping on straight to the first point of comparison, can we have the next slide? As discussed, I think the biggest takeaway is that there is no registration certificate required now. And this point is very, very important because registration certificate was required before you commence business in the earlier guidelines. So this has removed an entry barrier for OSP centers, both in terms of opening a new office or expanding their existing setup to different buildings in the same compound or complex. So this is a removal of entry barrier. I think this is going to go down very well with everyone, and everyone was expecting this change to happen, and it has taken place. I think coming down to dispensations, this is the first and foremost area that DOT has discussed in the guidelines. And the first two changes I would say are probably the biggest one because these were not expressly mentioned in the earlier guidelines. So connecting PSTN calls to MPLS VPN between OSPs for all calls that are incoming will be benefiting, the industry will be benefiting out of this, because any surplus calls, any calls that need to be transferred from one OSP to another because of a high inflow can be now transferred through leased circuit or MPLS VPN. Many OSPs were doing it earlier also, but now it is clearly said that it is part of the OSP dispensation. And second, I would say internet at centralized location is also a big relief, because many organizations wanted their central hub to host the internet connectivity, because it's very expensive to take internet or procure internet at each and every site and deploy your security stack at each and every site for its maintenance. So this reduces quite a bit of entry burden on OSPs having more than one offices, and they can procure internet centrally now. I think other dispensations were there to some extent in the old guidelines as well, so I'll not spend too much time on them and move to the next slide. So again, on this slide, we can see that filing of annual returns, bank guarantees for any purposes are not required anymore. Ambiguous definition of application services has been done away with, and in place of it, voice-based BPOs has been added, which again is helpful because it streamlines and is much more easier to understand than application services which had wide ramifications. Use of foreign PBX is permitted. It is a big takeaway for the industry, because there are global contact centers where calls come at a central location somewhere in London or Hong Kong, and then these calls, depending on the time of the day, are transferred to various offices in India. So having that PBX at a central location outside India is permitted under the new guidelines, which is a big takeaway for the industry. And finally, interconnection of OSP centers of different companies is allowed. So this also helps urban OSP centers to transfer or offload some of their excessive traffic and work to rural or semi-urban OSP centers. And this again will go a long way in helping the industry to go further. Can we move to the next slide? Sharing of infrastructure again is very important. The first option under the older guidelines, where agents were shared between international and domestic, also required submission of bank guarantee. So this requirement has been done away with, and there is no permission required to do this. There is no express condition in the guidelines that requires you to sign an agreement or anything of that sort to undertake option one kind of sharing, that is sharing of agent. Sharing of PBX was allowed earlier, it is allowed now as well. Distributed architecture, again we'll look at some of the diagrams later on in the slides, but this was allowed earlier also. Fixed term of sharing and bank guarantees have been done away with, which means there is no fixed time. Earlier it was 3 years that you could share after taking permission. Now there is no fixation of time, no bank guarantee, and importantly, no logical partitioning certificate is to be submitted, as Sharad ji rightly pointed that logical partitioning is a way or mechanism to ensure that there is no toll bypass, but it is on self-regulation and there is no certification required going forward. Similarly, CUG, their use of CUG was allowed earlier also for internal communication. It is allowed now as well, so there's no change. Going ahead to the next slide. Work from home, there's a major breakthrough in the sense that work from anywhere is allowed, which is very convenient for the industry. And I think more and more agents or employees will be able to utilize this facility now. The rigid requirements of PPVPN, bank guarantees, submission of name and address of the remote agents has been done away with, which again is a very welcome step. Prohibition on sending objectionable content was there in earlier as well, and it is still existing. Moving on to the next slide. Yeah. So these are some of the provisions which are not specifically or expressly mentioned in the new guidelines, but there are various interpretations possible. For example, if you look at prohibition of interconnectivity of international OSP with domestic OSP, the guidelines don't say that categorically as was the case earlier, but I assume there is still a prohibition because the guidelines do say that international will only connect to international and domestic to domestic. So otherwise it may lead to toll bypass. So these hot site, for example, was a provision earlier where hot site were also required to take OSP registration. They could only be used during BCP DR kind of situation. So these kind of provisions are not there, but one can guess whether these provisions are still relevant or not, because there are other ways of covering those same issues. For example, right of DOT to carry out inspection and audit is not specifically mentioned as was the case in the old guidelines, but DOT will still retain some rights of inspection both under the Telegraph Act as well as under the terms of the license, where when the licensee provides telecom bandwidth to the OSP centers, there are audit rights, and that is how most of the other centers which are not OSP are also governed. So absence of mentioning it clearly in the explicitly in the guidelines doesn't mean the provision doesn't exist. It has to be interpreted in the right manner. So that's my take on things that are not there compared to the old guidelines. Moving on to slide 9. These are some of the areas we thought that should come out clearly as something where DOT has gone a step beyond what was recommended by TRAI and maybe asked by the industry as a requirement, because we were expecting that registration will still be required for voice based BPOs looking at the TRAI recommendation, but it has been completely done away with, which is a big bold step, I would say, that DOT has taken. Similarly, streamline the definition of OSP. The revised definition is very simple, and it just includes voice BPO. We'll discuss more of it with the panel as we go ahead. Compliances has been done away with totally, which again is a big relief for the industry. They don't have to worry about periodic or ad hoc compliances like change in diagram, annual returns, all of that is done away with. And rest of them are self-explanatory, but I would say that the last one, which is dispensation to connect OSP with lease line for carrying PSTN traffic, again, it has been mentioned specifically for connectivity, and this is very helpful for the industry. Moving to the next slide. These are some of the areas where most likely further clarity will come in due course. And the first one is on captive centers, whether voice-based BPOs include captive centers or not. There are a lot of questions on this. And in my view, there are arguments on either side, but we are expecting some clarity to come on this front. Similarly, on use of HCCSP and CCSP, hosted contact center service providers was part of the TRAI recommendations. And we expect that some more clarity will come on its use and how it can be used pursuant to the new guidelines. We'll discuss more queries on this as we go ahead. And again, there was a condition to be prescribed for domestic operations by international OSP. So there was a situation where sometimes even international OSPs receive domestic calls. It could be because of a common customer who has their customers calling in both from outside India as well as in India, and OSPs were finding it difficult to have two registrations for that. So TRAI had suggested that you can have one international OSP registration as long as the same customer is being serviced through that OSP center. You can answer some of the some of the domestic calls also through the international OSP. So that was the third. And finally, sometimes for maintenance purposes of the EPBX, MPLS or lease circuit is required by vendors to connect to the lease circuit, especially on the PSTN side. So TRAI was of the view that this should be allowed with prior intimation to DOT. This is still a requirement that for maintenance purposes, sometimes it needs to be connected to a lease circuit, and therefore there could be some relaxation or clarity that we may get in future from DOT on this point as well. Moving on to the next slide. These are, can we have the next slide? Yes. So these are some of the areas where we believe, because of the new policy and because of the dispensations which are already up and is enforceable today, some of the conditions of the license agreement may require an amendment, or rather a clarity, because they should not be contradictory to the guidelines. And we have these provisions relate to connectivity between public and private networks, and also in relation to obligation of the telecom service providers to ensure that when they provide resources to OSP, it has to satisfy itself that it has been obtained for right purposes. So earlier the process was through network diagrams. Now either this has to change, or the obligation will have to be diluted or worded differently. Similarly, the definition of OSP has also been mentioned in the telecom licenses, which refers to the old definition, which is much wider. So maybe this also needs some amendment. Coming to SEZ rules, I think many OSP centers are in SEZ, and therefore there are certain provisions in the rules which require that agents should either work from the office, and there are references to work from home provisions which are taken from the OSP guidelines only. So further relaxation may be required there also, because they also mention about VPN connectivity from the home of the agent to the OSP center. And no such mandatory requirement is under the new guidelines. So I believe that SEZ rules will also need to be aligned with the new OSP guidelines. Moving to the next slide. Yeah, I'll just run through some of the network architectures here, and maybe we can discuss them at length later on. Can we have the next slide? So this is a typical international OSP architecture under the new guidelines, how it will look, because for the first time foreign PBX can be installed outside India in case of an international OSP center. So we have shown a couple of OSP centers connecting to the international ePBX, which then goes further for a PSTN breakout outside India. Can we have the next slide? This is how a typical domestic OSP architecture will look like, where there is a central PBX for many domestic OSP centers, and they connect to a central location where call recording, IVR, everything takes place. India PSTN caller can dial into this OSP center and connect to the centralized ePBX. Can we have the next slide? Sharing of infrastructure. So this is a centralized model where international and domestic OSP centers are connecting to a centralized ePBX, and the centralized ePBX then connects to the media gateway and has a breakout to PSTN outside India. So we will come back to these later during the discussion. Can we have the next slide? So which all sectors will get impacted? I think the BPO industry is one that will definitely benefit from the new guidelines. The growth rate will definitely go up. It has come down to 10 or 11%, but we expect that with the new guidelines, it will definitely go up, and that will be the real test of the guidelines of how well the industry has taken it, and only time will tell that. But we expect that at least for the next 2 years, we can see some phenomenal growth in this sector. For TSPs, I believe new areas have opened up in terms of how to connect OSP centers with liberalization taking place. Tech companies, of course, will look at new technologies to support contact centers in India and voice-based BPOs. Real estate, I think, will also benefit, and there will be new models that they will have to think of, mainly because there will be increase in the growth or numbers in rural or semi-urban kind of places where people will operate from their homes or will operate from smaller offices in these smaller cities and connect to the main OSP center. Again, the requirement that one can connect its OSP to another OSP of another entity will also help develop call centers and voice-based BPOs in smaller cities. So definitely the real estate sector should take note of this and design and look at demands accordingly. The government and the economy definitely, I think it is going to impact, because this is quite a bit of liberalization that has taken place. It should help in terms of having more business in India and ultimately take India so that India retains its #1 position in this sector. So I think with this, I will end this presentation where a fair idea of what has changed and what has happened we have discussed. Can we move to the next slide? If you have questions, you can start sending your questions either by typing them or sending at this email ID. And we'll be discussing and taking these questions later. So thank you very much, and back to you, Anish. Anish, you are on mute.
Thank you, Harsh. That was very elaborate and very helpful. What I'm going to do now, there are a lot of questions that have come in, right? And I think it's a very, very rich, diverse set of questions. Some of these may get answered in the opening comments of the panelists, so we can take them up in due course. I will again remind all the audience here that please do not feel discouraged if your questions do not get answered. There will be a best effort made by the panelists and by the organizers to get back to you with answers. Now, I'd like to invite Mr. Ramachandran, right, who is the president of the Broadband India Forum, and for his opening remarks. And I think it's very pertinent for him to speak a bit more about the work from anywhere, and if there are any complementary changes that he sees necessary to give full import to the enabling provisions of the new OSP guidelines. Over to you, TV.
Thank you, Anish ji. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening appropriately to the various sections attending this webinar from different parts of the world. I'm extremely happy to be here today to share a few thoughts with you all on the new guidelines issued by the DoT. Let me start off without further ado. Respected Chief Guest, Sir, Sri Sharit Trivedi, one of the prime architects of this policy, my esteemed co-panelists, and distinguished attendees. These guidelines or policy which has been issued by the DoT and so comprehensively described by my fellow panelist, Harsh Valeji. I have little to add to the content thereof. I think they mark a truly historic step in the process of liberalization and reforms in India. And we have seen very little of this type of such a proactive nature being done earlier. It has been done earlier, but this time I would like to talk, rather than the content, the process which they followed, how the department, Shri Trivedi ji, Shri Ramchandra ji, Shri Anshu Prakash ji, they proactively reached out to the industry players, the associations, think tanks, and sought inputs, their suggestions for a new, what started as a work from home policy and which now I would call a WOFA policy, work from anywhere. So I think that has come out remarkably well, and to the best of my knowledge, probably India is among a set of very few countries who have such liberalized policies for work for OSPs. This is going to significantly contribute to the targeted GDP, as I'm told, the sector will be, the IT and ITES sector would be contributing about 10% of the GDP to the economy by 2025. I think that will probably be exceeded the way we have started. We have heard about various aspects where you may need some further thought and clarifications. All I would say there, from my little experience, is that a policy is a policy is a policy. It'll always be at a high level. It sets the tone, it sets the way forward. There will be always follow-up discussions, clarifications. For every policy, that's the case. And you don't write everything nuts and bolts into a policy. So invariably, there will be follow-up work. We accept that, sir. And we look forward to your guidance going forward to hasten the contribution of the sector to the economy of the country. The fact that it has come in this COVID crisis is really fantastic, as the younger generation would call it. Awesome, simply awesome that it has happened now. And I cannot thank the department and the government enough for this. I would say that in this COVID impacted environment, India has stood up fairly well. And a lot of it is due to our telecom operators. They have kept the connectivity going despite the odds and challenges. They have kept it going for this country so that we did not have much of a setback. But with all due respect, I must also say that today the industry needs to stand up further with the government, go forward to fully leverage the possibilities from this great policy. Because if we're going to make work from anywhere most result oriented, then you need to have very robust and reliable connectivity all the time, everywhere. And that's very, very important. Earlier, we knew the central business districts, the clusters where office centers were there, so more connectivity was provided. But now the traffic pattern has changed. It's going everywhere, and it's all increased. More of video demand because conferences. And video conference means same quality uplink and downlink. You can't say download can be higher, uplink can be lower. No, it requires equally robust both ways. So we have to take a lot of steps forward, and I'm sure the government is going to come forward. Industry will have to stand up with them and make that happen. In particular, I would say one of our foremost priorities is going to be that of providing better Wi-Fi connectivity.
I think we are having, we are unable to hear you, Mr. Ramachandran.
Is it okay? No? Can
Yes,
you hear me?
you're back here, but a very, very apt interruption when you're talking about connectivity. So please carry on.
No, there was nothing to do with the connectivity. It was, I think it came on automatically, the muting. I don't know how it happened. So my apologies. So as I said, I was saying the Wi-Fi, we have to realize that in India, we have to go a long way on Wi-Fi. We have done much in many other areas, but Wi-Fi wise, for this sort of work from anywhere, you need ubiquitous Wi-Fi. And not merely ubiquitous Wi-Fi of what we now have, not the quality we have, which is at the 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, and 2.4 is just about 80 megahertz, and 5 adds to it, so about 640. That is not enough. For the sort of voice traffic we are having, the data crunch we are having, we need much more robust Wi-Fi and ubiquitous. In India, I must point out that today, our Wi-Fi availability, I repeat that, our Wi-Fi availability and penetration is less than 5% of the global average. Less than 5% of the global average. We have less than 0.3 million, and by all accounts, as per global norms, today this country should have had 8 to 10 million. As per NDCP itself, we should be having about 5 million now, December 2020, and we are nowhere near that. So we have a long way to go, and a big step on this is going to be the liberalization of Wi-Fi. Like, sir, you have liberalized OSP sector. We need the liberalization of the Wi-Fi to make this happen. And that is what has been recommended by TRAI, and I'm sure government will take that forward soon. And we need to strengthen that in order to be able to provide reliable service to our customers. And this sector being the crown jewel of the country's economy, the OSP, IT, ITES sector, I think we cannot afford to miss this opportunity. This geopolitical opportunity plus the various other opportunities created by the current environment. So my humble plea is, this is a great policy. I can't thank government anywhere near enough for this. It's historic. In my 25 years, I've seen very few instances of such great steps forward. But we need to leverage that by more policy actions and industry actions to make this happen. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ramachandran, for providing your perspective, a very valuable insight into actually affecting the work from home. May I now invite Saurabh Bhatnagar, the third organizer of this conference, which is ACTO. Saurabh is the president of ACTO. Saurabh, while you give your opening comments, may I also ask and seek your help with answering some questions on interconnectivity? A bunch of these have come out to us to the panel. So over to you, and if you could spare some time to take care of those questions, please.
Well, thank you, Anish. And hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And I would like to start with my thanks to DOT, TRI, and Government of India for simplifying the terms and conditions for the OSP guidelines. So I'll be very quick on my opening remarks because I would love to take the questions with respect to interconnectivity and the models which are possible for local and the international OSP. So to start with, I would like to I sincerely believe that these new OSP guidelines will provide the much needed boost for the growth of IT/ITES sector, including KPO, BPO in the country, and definitely it will reduce the regulatory obligations burden. Further, the way I see these guidelines, I think DOT has amply clarified and simplified the IT architecture and the infrastructure placement for both the domestic and the international OSPs. So if may I request if we can go to the slide number 14, wherein Harsh has talked about the architecture for international, domestic, and the sharing one. If may I can, for the audience, if I can clarify how to place the architecture for the domestic OSPs, international, and the sharing one. So I think it would be good for the forums and to take their questions. So may I request to go to the slide number 14, the previous one, the international one, the 13 one, the slide number 13, yeah.
So
can we go to the previous slide?
Yeah.
No, go to the slide number 13, yeah. Oh, thank you very much. So this is the typical international OSP architecture which you can see on your screen, wherein the DOT has very kindly accepted the industry request and demand, long-standing demand with respect to allowing the international PBX and platform for the international OSPs. If you see the definition of international OSP, this says the agent sitting in India and catering to the voice calls which are coming from the international customer. So if you see this network diagram, it is being bifurcated into two parts. On the upper hand side, it is outside India, and in the down, it is India. So any caller which is sitting, let's say in London, Europe, by using the toll and toll-free number, they can reach out to the Indian agent. The call will first hit the foreign international ePBX and gateway through global PSTN. It will be converted through global gateway. It will be converted into IP, and through global MPLS network, it can reach to the agents who are sitting in the various cities in India. Just go to the slide number 13 again. So the agent sitting in, let's say, Delhi, Mumbai, and Bengaluru. So once they will log in into the foreign PBX, they can easily cater to the request or any calls which are coming from the international world, and vice versa is also possible. So let's say if the agent sitting in India at this location, they can use their network, and they can connect to the foreign ePBX, and they can break out internationally into the PSTN world. And From the interconnectivity point of view, the toll bypass is not allowed. That means the foreign call which is coming from the international world should not be connected to the local PSTN and vice versa. The another important thing which DOT has said in the new guidelines is that you need to maintain a local CDR server and log. So all the call data record which your local agents will be catering with respect to incoming, outgoing calls for inbound and outbound telephony needs to be recorded and placed at the one of the sites. And other sites also through FTP and real-time manner, they should be the OSP would be able to fetch and show it to the authority whenever it is required. So this is a broad, typical architecture wherein you can place your foreign EPBX outside India and do the calling pattern. Can we go to the slide number 14, please? So thank you very much. So in this slide, we are talking about the domestic architecture with localized centralized EPBX. Here you can see there are agents sitting in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bengaluru at various locations in India. Through their domestic VPN network, they are interconnected to each other. They have taken the last mile connectivity and interconnectivity through the local service provider. They are connected to the centralized EPBX, wherein the CDRs are being captured. So any caller which is coming to the Delhi through India PSTN network, it will first hit the voice gateway, which is in Delhi, and in this through this particular media gateway, the signaling may go to the centralized EPBX, which has to be within India only, and this centralized EPBX will do the automatic call distribution functionality, capture the CDRs, reporting, and other agent skill pattern, and then the call will be handled by the agent in Delhi. For example, if your Delhi agent is not free and they want this call to be transferred, so in a clear dispensation which DOT has kindly allowed, this call through the VPN network, because earlier this dispensation was not clearly called out. Now DOT has very kindly allowed that any call which is hitting your incoming call, which is hitting your voice gateway in Delhi, it can be forwarded through VPN network to your Mumbai and Bengaluru contact center. But this is only for the incoming one, like as rightly called out by DOT and Harsh. Any outgoing call, PSTN call from Mumbai to Bengaluru has to be through on-site media gateway only. Can we go to the third slide, please? Next slide, for slide number 15. In this, we are broadly talking about the sharing of infrastructure between international OSPs, domestic OSPs, and the international and the PSTN line. If you can broadly see, the DOT guidelines clearly says that the PBX for your domestic has to be localized in nature, and you need to have a localized client data center. So for foreign or for foreign customer, let's say for international OSPs, you may have a choice for both the international EPBX and the local PBX, but for your domestic OSP operation, I think the DOT has clarified that you may not be able to use the international PBX, and the clarity is awaited in this regard for the sharing pattern, wherein the let's say maximum callers are from international world and there are few callers from the domestic world. So that clarity is still awaited. But for the sake of clarity for the audience, we have put the centralized architecture the way DOT has articulated in these guidelines, to have a localized centralized architecture PBX in India, which can cater both to the domestic and the international OSPs. So you can see, like Mr. Trivedi has rightly pointed out, it is a self-regulation kind of mechanism which needs to be adopted. So though the vendor certificate, logical partitioning certificate may not be required, but still the OSPs have to adhere to the law. They still need to maintain the logical partitioning and on a self-regulation basis. It's not like they can bypass the toll. If somebody asks me what is the toll bypass, here the definition of typical toll bypass is any call which is coming through your MPLS international network. So if any caller which is calling from toll or toll-free number from UK and it is coming to the OSP center via MPLS incoming network, it should not be forwarded to PSTN world and vice versa, and that will be the toll bypass. Similarly, for incoming scenario, for domestic incoming scenario, though DOT has given a dispensation that call can be forwarded from one location to another for incoming, But for outgoing, again, it will be a toll bypass if your agent sitting in Mumbai will use the gateway of Delhi to do any outbound or the outbound call or any outbound call for the domestic caller. So for any outbound call, the domestic OSPs have to use the on-site media gateway only. Though for incoming scenario, they can forward the call from one location to another. And again, you can see the admin console light at the bottom, wherein the CDR can be fetched through the centralized architecture. So broadly, this covers the architecture which are possible. I do understand there are various architecture which are possible both for foreign and for cloud and for international, and the OSP is one. But on a typical way, we have tried to cover the 3 best case scenarios for the clarity of the audience. Thank you. And I would love to take any other questions around the interconnectivity and the network diagram in the following session. Thank you, Anish. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you very much for that very detailed explanation. I will again reiterate that for the audience on this call, if you need any clarifications on any aspect of the infrastructure that you deploy, if you have doubts in your mind, then as mentioned by Sharadji, please do get in touch with your local termcell to get the relevant clarifications. Now moving on, we have representation from specific industry colleagues. First, I'd like to call upon Mr. Chandrasekhar, who's again, with his permission, we'll call him Shekhar for this session, who works for Microsoft and is part of the public policy and regulatory affairs for India. Shekhar, can I invite you to make your opening comments on the new guidelines, please?
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for having me here. Very glad to be part of this. Can you hear me?
Sorry, can we have the poll question also simultaneously run? Sorry, Shekhar, please continue.
No problem. Yeah, so very glad to be here, and I have been asked to make my comments on the work from home rules. At the outset, I would like to really congratulate DOT. I run out of words when I see the kind of changes they have made. So one is hitting the ball out of the park. And at one time we had batting like Sunil Gavaskar, and first 10 overs, you are not supposed to do anything. But now they are hitting sixes right from the word go. And I also came up with the word surgical strike because it was like beyond anybody's imagination the way they went. So really congratulations. A very important part of this regulation is the work from home regulations, which have come up as part of this new dispensation. So I need to go a little back into the background. So when the call center industry started, there was hardly any internet which used to come home. There was hardly any mobile. Many of the call centers were in special economic zones. So it was a given that most people had to travel to office, and then from there they needed to connect overseas. So there was no requirement of working from home. It was a completely alien concept. And move forward to about 5 to 7 to 10 years, and then internet became slowly started becoming ubiquitous. And then the senior management of various companies who could afford broadband speeds, etc., they started talking in terms of why not work from home, at least for our agents. And this demand started coming from multinational corporations. But at the time when this demand came, there were some very genuine and serious concerns that DOT had. One is that the toll differential was very, very high. So if anybody was setting up work from home, it was possible for him to set up a fake exchange and then sell calling cards and then make a lot of bulk calling outside. There were also security considerations. So the DOT, and especially because these requests were coming from multinationals and all, the DOT put a set of restrictions. One was that the connectivity should be through a service provider provided VPN. It has to be approved in advance. There has to be a bank guarantee. And so these were some of the regulations which came up, but probably the DOT went too far, and because one has to strike a very fine balance of liberalizing and then having controls. So in this case, probably the DOT went a little too far, so this work from home never took off. And this was one of our industry concerns, which we kept agitating to both DOT and to TRAI in order to simplify the process. Now, a few years down the line, there has been a complete paradigm shift in both the technology, the ubiquitous nature of the internet, the number of ladies who are there in our workforce, a number of work from home moms who are coming back into the workforce, rural BPOs and all that. So clearly we found that the regulation was really maybe 2 or 3 cycles behind reality. And while these discussions were going on with DOT, and I must tell you that this is not something which is come purely because of COVID. DOT was very open to these discussions even before COVID. But COVID presented us with a challenge and an opportunity. And it is said that never waste a crisis. And neither the DOT nor the industry wasted the COVID crisis. So we were suddenly confronted with a situation where most of our agents had to work from home, because otherwise the Indian economy would have come grinding on its knees, and there were widespread lockdowns in various cities. So it was just not possible for people to operate without a drastic simplification of the work from home policy. Now, when this happened, there was a time gap between the first liberalization of the work from home for a few months to the second liberalization. And that is the time when DOT and the industry went to the brass tacks and opened the, as they say, they opened the hood and took the car apart, and then started seeking very fundamental questions: that what is the toll bypass that we are trying to protect against? Isn't it better for our economy to have more ladies, more rural people coming onto the BPOs and contributing to the economy? Aren't the current regulations a overstretch? How easy it is for you to secure a PPVPN, how difficult it is to get a bank guarantee, and for DOT to keep those bank guarantees, track those bank guarantees, return it, and that represents a lot of locked capital for many of the BPOs who are not really having deep pockets. So we are extremely glad that DOT has listened and gone way beyond even what TRAI wanted, and they have liberalized it to the extent that currently you don't require prior intimation for work from anywhere. Work from home has become work from anywhere. You don't require any VPN or nothing specified. It is tech agnostic. Then so a lot of liberalization has taken place, and this has really given a big fillip to the industry. The shape of the BPO industry is going to change. This also represents a paradigm shift, because I feel that this is the 1991 moment as far as the telecom industry is concerned. The thinking, the way the regulation has been formulated, it is based on self-regulation, it is based on trust, it is based on partnership. DOT can catch us anytime, but they have moved 2 steps ahead and said, yes, we partner you, we want to enable you. Now we want to see how responsible industry is and how the industry can grow. Thank you, and ready for any questions.
Thank you, Shekhar. I think in the interest of time, what we're going to do is we're going to run through a poll first and come to the questions. So can I ask the organizers to put up the first poll question, please? It'll be up for 15 seconds for you to respond. So the question that's up on the screen is, what is the biggest positive impact of the new OSP regime on your business? And there are 4 options. The first, no registration requirement. The second is removal of bank guarantee requirements. The third is use of foreign EPABX by international OSPs. And the fourth is work from anywhere. So we're going to keep this up for 15 seconds so you can respond. Thank you very much. Shekhar, I think there's one follow-up question on to get your views on is, do you have any thoughts about the nature of connectivity between the agent and the OSP center?
Yes, so this has not been prescribed, either the methodology or the technology. It has been left to self-regulation. So there are the following factors to consider. One is that the OSP site contains a lot of data, and if the site and the connectivity is not secure, then the entity runs the danger of losing a lot of personal data or other kinds of enterprise data. So while this has not been prescribed, my sense would be that most OSP entities will use VPN and other secure measures, because this will be a vulnerability if they do not do that.
Okay, thank you for that, Shekhar. I think I'm going to move on to the next panelist. I'm now going to invite Priya Mahajan to provide her comments. Priya is the head of Asia Pacific Public Policy and is the Regulatory Council for Verizon Communications. So Priya, can I have your opening comments and your feedback on the OSP regulations, please?
Thank you. Thanks, Anish, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today and speak to you. I see that we have a great set of panelists lined up, especially from the industry. So I'm extremely delighted to be here. And sir, Sharad sir, you've heard it from the industry, and let me say it again. Thank you very much for the review of the much awaited guidelines. I think this has been really a game changer and marks the dawn of a new era, if I may say that, and will go a long way in the way we have been operating under the OSP regime. So thank you very much, sir. Taking a step back, and I know a lot of my fellow panelists have covered it, but just want to go back and reflecting on the developments that have led to this new policy. I think initially when in 2008, the policy was announced, it was meant to be supporting the nascent IT BPO sector with the desired policy stimulus, and I think the policy really did a great job and the sector made really great strides. But what really happened over a decade was that there was a massive shift in the technology, the rapid digitalization and transformation that happened across all the sectors of economy, where there was a complete the guidelines, the OSP guidelines actually totally became out of sync with the tech trends, so leaving a gap between the technology and policy. And I think that is the point where the DOT really stepped in, and in fact, in 2018, the Department of Telecom renamed the telecom policy as a digital communication policy. And one of the key priorities for DOT in that policy was also to review the OSP and do a comprehensive review of the OSP guidelines. So I think finally culminating in the recent guidelines, a step in the right direction. And for the industry, I may speak from the enterprise side. This is a major milestone, not only for us, but also for our customers, as the revised policy really takes note of the emerging tech trends and ensures that policy remains an enabler and not a disabler of the new and emerging technologies. And in this regard, I'll especially call out two technology trends, and especially remote working, which is very relevant, especially as we are living in really COVID times. Also leveraging scalable, flexible cloud-based solutions. And I can talk a little bit more about that in my further comments. But I think these would be the two key areas from an enterprise perspective, which would really stand benefited from the revised guidelines. Now, since Verizon operates in the enterprise space, and we provide connectivity and technology solutions to Fortune 500 companies, and many of the large international OSPs in India rely on secure and reliable networking, security and collaboration tools. And what this new policy has really done is to enable these companies to quickly spin up new technologies and support their remote employees and have the right tools for them to communicate and collaborate. So I think really a game changer for large OSPs and the enterprises who may want to kind of feel supported to maintain productivity. And if turning back to the role of ICT, I think telcos like ourselves have been really stepping up our efforts to keep our customers connected and providing them with the critical infrastructure. And in this regard, also OSP has really helped us, especially in supporting the remote working solutions, the virtual contact center solutions. DOT has rightfully clarified that we can leverage centralized EPBX at a foreign location in case of an international OSP, of course, subject to compliance with CDRs and systems org. I mean, again, here my request to DOT would be to ensure that instead of a prescriptive approach to compliance, we could follow a more flexible approach, especially with respect to mandates around data localization, CDRs and system logs. And I believe flexibility would really go a long way in helping the business leapfrog their digital journey. So that would be one of the critical piece for the businesses, especially as they use collaboration technologies to maintain productivity. Last but not the least, just want to flag out one particular, a research that Verizon recently did with Harvard Business Review, which is based on feedback of about 1,000 plus global business leaders. And this survey was conducted in May 2020. So this research basically examined the impact of recent rise in remote working and key areas the business leaders should focus at. And one of the key findings included that 86% of the global companies believe that the digital workplace will coexist with the physical workplace. So it's gonna go huge, and I think the DOT's recent policy will be really helpful and step in the right direction. The other key finding, which is really important, was 78% of the companies expected to increase remote working, which is massive increase in the remote working, and which will need newer ways of thinking, where remote employees will need new right tools to communicate and collaborate. So I think as we move forward, and we've covered it in the panel as well. So my request to DOT would be kind of to make sure that similar approach is being followed, which is more light touch and flexible, to ensure that businesses can return to business as usual and leverage the emerging technologies. So with that, Anish, I'll probably turn it back to you.
Thank you for that, Priya. That was very helpful to provide the enterprise business view. We've had the view from the cloud service provider, now the enterprise view. Again, your individual views, not those of your employees, as I've been advised. Can I now go on to Mr. Vineet Vij? Vineet is a Group General Counsel for Tech Mahindra, and as a user, and perhaps the businesses that have been involved in the whole OSP discussions the most are businesses like Vineet's. So Vineet, what are your opening remarks, your comments on this, and your thoughts, please?
So thank you so much, Anish, for inviting me, and thank you, Sharadji. I think it's I'm going to be repetitive on most of the things that I will say, but I think thank you so much. It's path-breaking, and I think we as an organization were the first ones to just congratulate the DOT and the Government of India for this great step taken forward. In fact, more than expected, as we kind of all agree. As a user, as an OSP, I think it's done great for us. What it does is, and I will just probably be repetitive, but what it really does for us is, on the one hand, it brings clarity as to what's covered and what's not covered. So the definition, the application services, and all of that stuff gets settled now. I know it's all about voice-based call centers, which are covered from an OSP definition perspective. And so therefore, the multiple businesses that we run as an organization and many other services companies, IT services companies, we now have that clarity as to what we need to be doing and what's the coverage. So that's one part of it. So I congratulate you, and I think it's bringing that clarity amply. The second piece that I see is personally a lot of operational efficiency kind of comes in. The fact that we've done away with the registrations, we've kind of simplified the work from home, or rather the work from anywhere stuff is itself a great stuff. And again, thanks from the industry as such. It really will lead to financial efficiencies, if I was to say this. The bank guarantees per OSP center wise for the work from home, for the infrastructure sharing and so on and so forth, which probably for an organization of a small size can be really humongous. I think that was a big burden. And I mean, that's got settled. So that's something that is heartening. It really empowers. I would say we move away from the regulated model to, and maybe, I mean, I personally think we needed that regulation at a time when it was necessary. The say 20 years ago, it really was required. The industry was in its infancy, it was growing, the technology advancements were happening. So I think for all those reasons, the regulations were necessary. But I think we've emerged to a point that we are all matured, and we're all facing tough competition now. It's been a couple of years now that this industry is going through challenges internationally. So I think from that perspective also, it's pretty good. The empowerment, and therefore I personally feel that, you know, when you kind of do away with the regulations and you make industry individual go a self compliant model, it brings a lot of responsibility onto us. So I think as OSPs, for the kind of work that which will get covered, I think it will make us more responsible. We see the security conditions. We are very well aware with the working that we have done for these years as to where we need to stand. And I think it's a welcome step. Thank you so much. There are certain areas that we will need clarity, of course. And I think we look forward to working together with the term cells, and as we just started in the conversation, and with the DOT involved as well. So how do we take this forward? And so thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Vineet. That was very helpful and very insightful from a very user perspective. I will now invite the polls, please. Can we have the organizers put up the poll questions 2, 3, and 4? While the poll question comes up, Harsh, there's a question on data protection principles, which for a foreign EPBX, and there's another question, Sharatji, for you at a later stage around what happens to inspections going forward. We'll take those after the polls is over. So the second poll question, how would you rate the new OSP guidelines on the ease of doing business scale? The 4 options: unsatisfactory, satisfactory, good, and very good. Thank you. Can we have the next poll question as well, please? In your view, what is the single most important issue in the new OSP guidelines that has not been addressed? First, definition of voice-based BPO services, applicability of the OSP guidelines on captive centers, permission to use cloud-based infrastructure, guidance on prevention of toll bypass, and the last one, use of international EPBX for domestic operations. Thank you for that. We'll take a stall. We'll take a stop on the poll questions now. I'd like to quickly go to Harsh Walia first. Harsh, is there a view? One of the questions that came up was around data protection principles for foreign EPBX. Would you want to touch on that briefly?
Yes, sure. I would say that data protection principles primarily will apply on personal information only. And as I see, there is a specific reference of data protection in the guidelines as well, specifically with respect to foreign PBX when international OSP is permitted. And it says that the OSP will take all necessary measures to comply with the requirements of relevant provisions of Indian laws, including applicable data privacy laws. So therefore, I think one has to first determine what is the set of data that is going out of India in case of a connectivity to the EPBX outside India. What kind of data will be stored? And now I think there are 2 ways of looking at it. One is under the current Indian data protection laws under the IT Act. And this only protects sensitive personal data as of now. There are very few things I can list down about personal information, but sensitive data is definitely protected, and sensitive data for the knowledge of all of us here will include information like financial information, or like credit card information, or maybe medical history and all of that, passwords. So I do not think that EPBX, placing the EPBX and recording the call records and other IVR data will include sensitive data, so to say. So to that extent, I believe that there is nothing much to worry about it. But yes, I think the second angle to it is that there is a new law that is coming up. Currently, the PDP bill, as it is called, is pending before the Joint Parliamentary Committee and may be tabled in the monsoon session next year. So under that law, any information that goes out of India, which is personal information and not just sensitive, gets protection. So I think coming next year, there will be some kind of more elaborate requirements as far as personal information is concerned. If the draft currently pending is considered, there will be requirements to ensure that there is proper consent before such data goes out of India. But for the information of everybody, there is no cross-border restriction, so to say, that apply on personal information if the current draft is enacted. So that's my very overview I could give on data protection with respect to EPBX being placed outside India. Over to
Okay,
you, Anish. And
well,
Sheikh,
thank you, Harshad. Thank you very much. I think there's it's only a broad view which we can provide at this stage. Can I ask the organizers to put up the other two poll questions one after the other so we can get the view from the audience? So the question is, do you see the new OSP guidelines as a game changer for India's outsourcing industry? The options are yes and no. Thank you. Can we have the last one, please? Do you think voice-based captive centers should be covered under the OSP guidelines? Thank you very much. So I think we are entering the last 10 minutes of this webinar. It's been a very helpful and a very rich discussion from very broad and diverse inputs. Shariji, can I also invite you now to provide your thoughts on what all that you've heard so far from the panelists and the range of questions that we've seen from multiple audience, from the members of the audience. So any thoughts that you have to provide? One thing, if you could touch upon at this time, is a question around what happens to inspections going forward. Is there a process? And secondly, is there a timeline you have in mind for the next set of queries? Is there a next timeline set for when the queries would be further clarification on these guidelines? Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Anish. The first question is regarding the timelines for the queries. The queries have already started coming in individually and through associations. And all of you are open to send queries. You can compile and send either through EFTO or BIF for any association, or individually also. It could be sent directly to us, that is myself or Mr. Ajay Negi in my team, or it could be sent through the term cells, wherever it is comfortable. I would suggest that you keep both of us in the loop. And the next point about the guidelines. As we have seen that there has been a major change in the guidelines. Work from anywhere will be a big game changer. And see, earlier the point was work from home was allowed with a 1 crore bank guarantee. That has been done away. There was a restriction on the type of connectivity, PPVPN, but it's static IP. That means it has to be typically through a terrestrial media. So it has to be anchored to a particular location. Now technology permits, you can go through dongle, or you could work from anywhere. The only requirement is it should be within India. Now it is up to the OSPs companies to decide how to implement within India. It can be very easily done by restricting it to the IP address within India, IPs of India. And bank guarantee requirement has been done away with. Even this prior requirement of signing an agreement and taking prior approval, and even after that giving the list of the agents, the names of the agents and the addresses, everything is open now. But it is in the interest of the companies to maintain a log, because end of the day, as when one panelist has said that the VPN has been kept open. Now the issue is earlier was PPVPN. In the guideline, in the relaxations that we had issued in March and further expanded in April, we had allowed it could be any secure VPN which could be configured by the OSP themselves, or it could be secure connectivity. So it is now technology agnostic. It is up to the OSP company. See, it is your data. You have to protect your data. So it is up to the OSP companies to decide what is the security that has to be built in. And from government side, the guidelines are very simple. The CDRs have to be maintained. In case there is a requirement, then only it will be required. Otherwise, it's a self-regulation. The same thing applies to inspections. Now, there are many things which have to be worked out and which have to be clarified in the near future. So, I would suggest, like, whatever issues you are facing, we are seized of the matter, and we'll come out shortly with those clarifications also. And it will help the industry to have better clarity. Because aim is to, wherever restrictions are there, it should be explicitly known what is not allowed, so that there's no ambiguity. Otherwise, it is open to interpretations. That was all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was very, again, very insightful, and I think very the point the point that's registering very well with the at least with the panelists and with me here is the fact that the openness with which you're welcoming and inviting comments, the queries that are coming up. So clearly, we think we're highly encouraged in this area to interact and see, and wait for the clarification on those. Indeed, the guidelines are straightforward, they're simple, and they have taken away a lot of the things which directly address some of the things which are a concern earlier on. Can I ask the organizers if the poll answers are ready for the audience and the panelists to see? Okay, so the first one was, what is the biggest positive impact of the new OSP regime on your business? I think the work from anywhere has overwhelmingly taken up 53% of the positive responses. Well, the second one, use of foreign EPBX by international OSPs, is the second, which is 26%, which is fairly large. I think, and followed by no registration requirement and removal of bank guarantees. So I think both of the work from anywhere, I believe, has been answered in reasonable details over this conference, but there might be some residual questions. I think there's more queries to be answered on the foreign EPBX by international OSPs. Can we take the next one, please? Thank you again. Very good. How would you rate new OSP guidance and user-bring business scale? 52% for very good. That's a very positive response. Again, a very clearly, the audience also agrees with the view of the panel. Can you do the third one, please? Okay, which is the single most important issue in the new OSP guidelines, which has not been addressed. So again, the answer is it's 49% permission to use cloud-based infrastructure. So Shalaji, that's one area where the audience is looking for some answers. The second, of course, everything else seems to be almost at the same level. So guidance and prevention of toll bypass and the others are pretty much on the same level as the others. So I think it's the key question that requires answering is cloud-based infrastructure. Can we take the next poll question, please? Do you see the new OSP guidelines as a game changer? A whopping 93%. This is, I think, it's a tremendous response and affirmation of the positive moves taken by the DoT. So excellent. Can we do the last one, please? Do you think voice-based captive centers should be covered under the OSP guidelines? The answer is yes, 59% and 41%. I wouldn't say there's a big gap here. but still the numbers speak for themselves. So thank you very much for this. I think we have a minute to go. I'd like to extend a word of thanks to all the panelists. Thank you, Sharadji, for your time. Thank you for the audience for making time for this webinar. It's been a great experience for me, and we look forward in this space to get even more positive news. So thank you all, and have a lovely afternoon, evening. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Namaskar.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Look forward to your queries. Bye-bye.
Bye.